Hey, Radiant Hill family, Bellevue Christian School family, and anybody else who's tuning in for a little hope for today. Well, we find ourselves in the midst of Holy Week, and a unique Holy Week at that for those of us who are followers of Jesus and go to church regularly. This is a week where we normally gather a little bit more to remember and acknowledge the week leading up to Jesus' death. And this week, we definitely aren't gathering together, but instead we are staying in our homes and quarantined. But I want to encourage you to not neglect slowing down and considering Jesus's week leading up to his death and all that week held, and even after his death, the quiet Friday night and Saturday, and then of course let us celebrate the fact that Jesus conquered hell, death, and the grave, rising again. But do not let the fact that we are not in the church building together or physically somewhere together stop you from considering Jesus this week. And I want to just for a moment read us a passage from Luke 23, starting in verse 32. And in this passage, we find Jesus on the cross, hanging up above everyone else, in between two criminals and soldiers down below, mocking him, dividing up his garments, and religious leaders who sent him to the cross, scoffing at him. And Jesus, up on the cross, responds to them. And the way he responds is marvelous. Let's consider this passage together. Luke 23, starting in verse 32. Two others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Forgive them." Get this, guys. Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments. Wow. Jesus' response means everything. It meant everything for those people at that time, whether they knew it or not. It means everything for us today, because there's so much grace in what Jesus said from the cross. There's so much forgiveness here. And if anything, this should show us that forgiveness is possible. Forgiveness is possible because of Jesus' love on the cross, that even while they were still sinning against him, even while they were mocking him, even while they were the people who just put him up on the cross and were watching him suffer and die, Jesus forgives them. The same is true for us, my friends. Even while we are still sinners, even while we're still not put together perfectly, even while we're still trying to figure things out, Jesus died for us. That's good news. He meets us in our broken state. Isaiah, the prophet, says, "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and by his wounds we are healed." Jesus was pierced, and we're the ones who transgressed. He was crushed, but we are healed. It is so backwards, but it is so beautiful, because it is our hope. Believer, press into that hope today. If you don't believe in Jesus, consider him today. He meets you right where you're at, and he wants to forgive you. My friends, have a blessed Holy Week. Talk soon.